Fans taking comfort in the lyrics, singing along to the artist's song, fondly remembering the legend.
Shock G was found unresponsive in a Tampa hotel room last week. He was 57 years old.
James passed away from pulmonary and cardiac failure, diabetes, stroke, and the effects of chronic drug abuse.
Death can come at any moment, anywhere, and to anyone. When it strikes suddenly, without warning, it leaves behind an unrelenting haunting. In a world drenched in the dazzling glow of Hollywood, there are icons, legends who seem untouchable. Yet, in the end, even they cannot escape the abrupt arrival of death. They collapse right in front of the cameras, under the stage lights. Just yesterday, they were laughing and talking. Today, they'll never wake again. Who were these people? How did they depart so unexpectedly? Follow along as I share the 25 stories below, and you'll find the answers. 25th Prince, tragedy in the elevator of a legend. Prince, an irreplaceable music icon, painted timeless melodies like Purple Rain, When Doves Cry, and Kiss. He wasn't just a singer or songwriter, he was a creative genius, an artist who dared to defy every rule. Prince never stopped evolving, constantly pushing boundaries, turning every stage into his own universe. But a monument as brilliant as him fell in a way no one could fathom, inside a silent elevator, right in the very place where he crafted his life's masterpieces. April 21st, 2016, a cold morning in Minnesota. Paisley Park was cloaked in stillness. No more vibrant sounds, no more gliding guitar riffs. Everything felt off. At 9:43 a.m., an employee entered the estate. A strange sensation took hold. His footsteps echoed through the empty space. When the elevator doors slid open, the sight inside made his blood run cold. Prince lay there, motionless on the floor. No trace of life remained. His entire world crumbled in that single moment. 5 minutes later, medics rushed in. But hope had already slipped away. Prince's body was cold, his heart silent. An overdose of fentanyl, a devastating opioid, had quietly taken his life, unnoticed by anyone. Just a week earlier, he'd been on stage in Atlanta, delivering a mesmerizing performance with no sign of exhaustion. Then, 7 days later, he was gone. Paisley Park, once a musical sanctuary, became a place forever tied to one of the most painful losses in music history. 24. Luther Lindsay, a fatal fall in the ring. Luther Lindsay was a pioneering black wrestler, blazing a trail for future generations in America's wrestling arenas. With formidable strength, masterful technique, and an unyielding fighting spirit, Lindsay's career was filled with glory. He was seen as an icon, a warrior who knew no defeat. But no one could have predicted that his match on February 21, 1972, would be the final chapter of his life. Charlotte, North Carolina. That night, the arena buzzed with energy. Lindsay stepped into the ring to face Bobby Paul. Powerful moves, decisive strikes, everything unfolded perfectly. The crowd roared as Lindsay pinned his opponent with a slick hold. But he wasn't done. With a confident grin, he climbed to the top rope, ready for the finishing blow. The audience held its breath. He leaped, landing perfectly, crushing his opponent. The referee counted 1, 2, 3. The bell rang in victory. Luther Lindsay had won. But then, an eerie silence fell. He remained on top of his opponent, unmoving. The referee approached, tapping his shoulder. No response. Whispers spread through the crowd as excitement turned to confusion. Medics rushed to the ring. They checked his pulse. Nothing. His body grew cold before thousands of stunned eyes. A heart attack had struck him down at the peak of his triumph, in the very moment of victory. Luther Lindsay left this world a winner, a tragic curtain call where the ring became his final resting place. 23rd. Fat Man Scoop, collapse on the Hampden stage. Fat Man Scoop was unmistakable in the hip-hop world. His signature call-outs, explosive energy, and crowd-hyping skills made him an icon. From Be Faithful to stages across the globe, he was the life of every musical party. But on the night of August 30th, 2024, amidst a stage ablaze with lights, his heart could no longer keep up with the game. Hamden Park, Connecticut, 9:42 p.m. The atmosphere was electric. Fat Man Scoop stood center stage, belting out his familiar chants. The crowd went wild, but then, in a moment no one saw coming, his body swayed, his legs faltered, and then he collapsed, fast and heavy, like a thunderous crash. The music stopped. The crowd froze. The band halted. A deathly silence spread, quickly replaced by panicked screams. Medics stormed the stage, performing CPR, fighting for every second of life. But his body wouldn't respond. An ambulance screeched in, tires skidding on the pavement. The crowd parted in terror as Fat Man Scoop was loaded onto a stretcher. Someone yelled, voice raw, "He's not moving." At 10:07 p.m., the hospital confirmed it. Fat Man Scoop was gone. A stroke, likely heart-related. A heart that had carried a career of intensity had given out right on stage. Hamden Park, moments ago shaking with music, now stood in haunting silence. A gifted artist had departed, right in the midst of doing what he loved most. 22. Johnny Guitar Watson, the final note of a fateful night, Johnny Guitar. Watson wasn't just a musician, he was a legend. With virtuoso guitar skills and a captivating stage presence, he left an indelible mark on blues, soul, and funk across 4 decades. His music didn't just inspire, it shaped a generation of artists. But no one could have guessed that the guitar he'd carried through life would witness his final moments on stage. May 17, 1996, Yokohama, Japan. The theater was packed, stage lights blazing, Watson's guitar riffs filling the air. The audience was lost in every note, mesmerized by his fingers flying across the strings. It was a flawless show, until fate intervened. At 8:37 p.m., mid-solo, Watson froze. His eyes widened, his hand trembled. In an instant, his body crumpled, the guitar crashing to the floor with a jarring thud. The room fell silent. The band stopped. Members rushed to him, shaking his motionless form. No response. His pulse faded, his breathing nearly gone. Medics raced to the stage, attempting resuscitation, but it was too late. At 8:51 p.m., the official report came. Johnny Guitar Watson was dead. A heart attack had struck. Yokohama, once called one of his most memorable stages, became his burial ground. The audience didn't leave right away. They stood there, staring at the stage, hoping for a miracle. But no more notes would ring out. 21. Florence Griffith Joyner, the Queen of Speed, falls in sleep. Florence Griffith Joyner was a name that left the world in awe. FloJo wasn't just an athlete. She was a living legend of the track, the woman holding untouchable 100-meter and 200-meter records. Her flowing hair, bold uniforms, and lightning speed made her a symbol of power, style, and absolute dominance. But a seizure in the night ended it all. Morning, September 21st, 1998, Mission Viejo, California. The sky was as clear as ever. In a quiet home, a final chapter silently closed. The night before, FloJo had returned after a busy day, showing no signs of trouble. But as dawn broke, something was wrong. At 6 a.m., her husband, Al Joyner, woke up. FloJo lay still in bed, her face eerily peaceful. He called her name, shook her. No response, no pulse, no breath. Panic set in. A desperate 911 call pierced the silence. At 6:12 a.m., the ambulance arrived, but every effort was futile. Florence Griffith Joyner was gone. A haunting stillness enveloped the house. The woman who once made the world hold its breath with her divine sprints couldn't outrun this race with death. The investigation revealed a seizure in her sleep had led to suffocation, a death so sudden, with no warning, no chance to fight. That day, the sports world lost an irreplaceable legend. Her records endure, but the woman who set them has stopped running forever. 20. Reebop Kwaku Ba, the final moment on the Stockholm stage. Reebop Kwaku Ba, a percussion genius, was the one who blended African rhythms into the stream of modern rock. He played with legendary bands like Traffic and Wings, leaving a powerful mark with his emotional and wild playing style. But cruel fate cut his journey short, right in the middle of a blazing stage. January 12, 1983, Stockholm, Sweden. A night of frenzied music, pounding drum beats. The breath of the entire audience fused as one. Reebop sat center stage, his hands a whirlwind on the drum set, each beat pulsing with fierce vitality. But then, something no one anticipated happened. 10:17 p.m., in the midst of an explosive solo, Reebop's body suddenly froze. A searing pain tore through his head. His hands trembled. The rhythm faltered, and then, like an ancient tree felled by an axe, Reebop collapsed onto the stage. The band stopped playing. The room seemed to hold its breath. Was this part of the performance, or was something horrific unfolding? Bandmates rushed to him. Reebop lay still. His breathing grew faint. Someone from the crowd climbed onto the stage, attempting to help. But it was no use. Over half an hour later, it was officially confirmed. Reebop Kwaku Ba had passed away due to a brain hemorrhage. That night, Stockholm bore witness to an ending no one could have foreseen. Reebop's drums fell silent, leaving a void that could never be filled. A legend fell right where he belonged, on the stage, where every beat he played once shook the world. 19th. Rick James, a legend falls amid fading glory. Rick James was the king of funk, a man who turned the 80s upside down with his wild style, electrifying beats, and a live-for-the-moment attitude. He'd plummeted into the abyss of drugs and prison only to claw his way back, striving to reclaim his spotlight. Recent performances proved the fire in him hadn't died, but his body told a different story. August 6, 2004, Los Angeles. A sweltering morning. In his lavish mansion, Rick James lay still on the bed he never wanted to leave after the party ended. The night before, he'd been brimming with energy, convinced he could control everything, even the dull ache in his chest. But his heart had other plans. 9:30 a.m., his assistant knocked on the door. No answer. The unnatural silence sparked concern. The door swung open. Rick James was motionless, eyes shut tight. Not a single breath. A frantic 911 call went out, but hope was snuffed out in that very moment. 9:52 a.m., paramedics arrived. They tried every resuscitation method, but it was futile. He was gone, quietly and alone. The report later confirmed heart failure as the cause. Traces of multiple drugs, cocaine, methamphetamine, diazepam, were found in his system, though not in overdose amounts. It was simply that, after years of abuse, Rick James's heart could take no more. 18. Shock G. Collapse in a cold hotel room. Shock G was a cornerstone of hip-hop history. Not only was he the leader of Digital Underground, but he also discovered and launched Tupac Shakur's career. With a quirky yet creative flair, he left a lasting imprint through hits like The Humpty Dance. A genius artist, a gifted producer, but also a complex soul, always immersed in a world of music and solitude, even until his final breath. April 22, 2021, Tampa, Florida, room 333 of a hotel. It wasn't just a place for Shock G to rest. It was his creative space in his last days. 4 p.m., a hotel staff member knocked. Checkout time had passed, but inside, it was eerily quiet. When the door opened, Shock G lay on the bed, motionless. No response. His laptop looped an unfinished track. The room was thick with the stifling air of a deathly silence. Just 15 minutes later, medics arrived. They checked his pulse, but it was hopeless. The report later confirmed he'd died of a drug overdose. No one knew exactly how much he'd taken, only that his body couldn't hold on any longer. His death lacked chaos, just a quiet departure. But that silence became the greatest haunting of all. A genius had fallen amid unfinished songs. 17. Gerald Levert, a silent exit in his own home. Gerald Levert, a name synonymous with soulful ballads, wielded a powerful voice and built a rock-solid career in R&B. From his success with the group Levert to a blazing solo run, he was the man who poured emotion into every lyric, making the world swoon. But behind the glamour, his life was an endless grind, weighed down by pressure and tormented by chronic headaches. The night of November 9, 2006, Cleveland, Ohio, he stood in the studio, putting the final touches on tracks for a new project, brushing off the pain. No one suspected it would be the last time he'd lend his voice to the world. The next morning, he returned home, exhausted after months of relentless work. The nagging pain lingered, a sign his body had endured too much. As usual, he reached for painkillers. One dose, then two. He figured a deep sleep would fix it, and tomorrow would be fine. But this time, there'd be no tomorrow. Around 1:30 p.m., his assistant came by calling out to him. No reply. When the bedroom door opened, Gerald Levert lay still on the bed. His phone was still in his hand, as if he'd meant to call someone but didn't make it. He'd passed away from an overdose of pain medication, a dangerous mix of prescription drugs. No one could have imagined that what once helped him push through the agony would also be what killed him. 16. Wilson Pickett. A fall in the moment of comeback. Wilson Pickett was an unforgettable name in soul music. His voice infused rock into every note, turning songs like In the Midnight Hour and Mustang Sally into timeless classics. After years out of the spotlight, he was staging a comeback, having just finished a music project, ready to pen the final chapter of his brilliant career. But fate wouldn't let him. January 19, 2006. Reston, Virginia. Pickett's home buzzed with joy. He sat in the living room, leaning back in his chair, eyes alight as he thought about what lay ahead. A satisfied smile curved his lips. But then, a sudden pain clamped down on his chest. Everything shifted in an instant. Wilson Pickett collapsed. The glass in his hand hit the floor with a chilling crash. He tried to move, to call for help with a broken voice, but no one was there. The house, once filled with music, plunged into a terrifying silence. Just 15 minutes later, a family member found him. But it was too late. All hope had vanished. His death was a simple consequence of time and a body pushed beyond its limits. The man who once shook the world with a voice brimming with power left it in a quiet ache. No more stages, no more lights, just an empty room and an unfinished song. 15. Isaac Hayes, Falling Amid Life's Beat. Isaac Hayes wasn't just a singer or songwriter, he was an icon. He reshaped soul music, delivering immortal melodies like Theme from Shaft, winning an Oscar, and captivating millions of fans. At 65, he still burned with passion, having just wrapped up a new music project. No one thought that, hours later, his life would end forever. The afternoon of August 10, 2008, Memphis was calm as ever. In his home, Isaac Hayes spent time with family, unwinding after months of tireless dedication. But for him, rest was never an option. As usual, he stepped into his gym, climbing onto his familiar treadmill. Steady steps, a rising heartbeat, a day like any other. But this time, something was off. A sudden dizziness hit. His head spun. His body gave out. He crumpled, unable to react. The room fell quiet. The machine kept running, but Isaac Hayes no longer moved. An hour later, a family member walked in and found him unconscious on the floor. Panic erupted. An urgent call. The wail of an ambulance tore through the stillness, but it was all too late. 2:35 p.m., the doctor broke the news to the family. Isaac Hayes was gone. The cause was a stroke. A sudden end for a man so healthy and full of vigor. The man who crafted timeless tracks that drove people wild lay still beside the hum of a treadmill. 14th, Reggie White, a tragic end in the Christmas season. Reggie White was an iconic football player, a terror on the field, one of the greatest defensive players in NFL history. 2 Super Bowl wins, 13 Pro Bowl selections. His stellar career was undeniable. Even after retiring, millions revered him. But on a frigid winter morning, a painful collapse changed everything. December 26, 2004, while the world still basked in Christmas cheer, Reggie White woke up at his home in Cornelius, North Carolina. An ordinary day, a peaceful morning, until it turned fateful. Around 6:30 a.m., a sharp chest pain struck. Intense, swift, no warning. The massive frame that once intimidated opponents on the gridiron suddenly faltered. He stumbled, grasping for support, but his legs gave way. And then, he fell hard onto the floor. His family found him right away. Panic flooded the room. A desperate 911 call rang out. Paramedics raced in as fast as they could, but it was too late. At 7:04 a.m., Reggie White was declared dead. An arrhythmia, a silent killer he didn't even know he carried, snatched his life in an instant. The man who struck fear into rivals, once dubbed the Minister of the Defensive Line, was betrayed by his own heart. 13. Godfrey Cambridge, a sudden exit on the set. Godfrey Cambridge was a giant in comedy. With sharp satire and refined acting chops, he lit up stages and screens, becoming one of the most successful black entertainers of his time. But while his career soared at its peak, destiny hastily closed his final chapter. November 29, 1976, the set of Victory at Entebbe, Burbank, California. The atmosphere buzzed with activity, cameras ready, crew bustling to prep a key scene. Godfrey Cambridge was there as usual, though today he looked tired. He still flashed his familiar smile, radiating his signature energy, but a keen eye might have caught subtle signs something was wrong in his movements. Around 12:45 p.m., the scene began. He stood on set, ready to speak. But suddenly, everything halted. A brief frown, a puzzled grimace. His hand pressed to his chest, his breathing heavier. And then he dropped. The crew panicked. Shouts rang out. People rushed in, trying to revive him. But he didn't move, didn't respond. 1:07 p.m., a doctor arrived, but all efforts were in vain. Godfrey Cambridge had passed away right there on set, at just 43. A sudden heart attack was confirmed as the cause. They say the stage is an artist's home, and Cambridge left this world where he belonged. The laughter he left behind will echo forever in the hearts of those who adored him. 12th. Dick Gregory, falling after a familiar smile. Dick Gregory wasn't just a comedian. He was a warrior, both on stage and in real life. He wielded laughter as a weapon against injustice, turning humorous tales into sharp tools in the fight for equality. Over half a century of work made Gregory an icon, a voice that could never be silenced. The evening of August 18, 2017, he stood on stage before hundreds of fans. His voice still carried authority, each word slicing deep into the injustices he'd spent his life exposing. After nearly 2 hours, he wrapped up with a gentle quip, flashing that familiar smile. No one knew it would be the last time. The next morning, August 19, 2017, he collapsed at home. A sharp pain stabbed through his chest. The book in his hand fell to the floor. At 12:51 p.m., his family found him, but it was too late. Dick Gregory was gone, ending an 84-year journey of relentless activism. A heart that once beat for justice had finally stopped. But what he left behind will never fade. 11. Aaron Spears. The drum beat stopped suddenly. Aaron Spears wasn't just a talented drummer, he was a living legend among musicians. His powerful beats once shook the stages of top-tier artists. Passion, energy, creativity, he had it all. But those things couldn't hold on to his life. The morning of October 30, 2023, Aaron Spears' home was strangely quiet. His drum set sat there, sticks within reach, but no rhythm filled the air. At 10:37 a.m., he sent one final text. Soon after, someone heard a faint sound, maybe a stick dropping or a stumbling step. Aaron Spears felt a piercing pain, then a sudden fall. No one knew exactly what happened, only that when they found him, he lay motionless beside his drums. 10. George "Funky" Brown, the final melody of a legend. George "Funky" Brown wasn't just the drummer of Kool and the Gang, he was the band's soul. With his vibrant beats, he crafted timeless funk hits that got millions grooving to the rhythm. But even legends can't defy time. November 16, 2023. A quiet morning. George woke up in his familiar home, once alive with the sounds of practice sessions. His drumsticks rested on the table, but no music played. After a violent coughing fit from lung cancer, he froze for a moment. The pain wasn't just in his lungs anymore. It spread, choking every breath. He sat there, head tilted slightly, eyes closed as if resting after a long rehearsal. But he wouldn't wake up again. Unbeknownst to anyone, he'd passed away in his room by 10 a.m. It wasn't until noon, when his family found him, that the grief erupted. 9. Malik B. The rap falls silent. Malik B, a legendary member of the Roots, once stirred the world with his razor-sharp rhymes and street-bred melodies. But as the spotlight dimmed, he grew quieter, more enigmatic, only popping up occasionally with passion projects. No one suspected his latest work would be his last. July 26, 2020, Malik B was still in the studio, his deep voice resonating through the mic. His lyrics dripped with emotion, almost like a premonition. Colleagues noticed he seemed tired, but no one thought it was serious. He left the studio with no promise to return. 3 days later, a relative stopped by his place. They knocked, but no one answered. The door wasn't locked. The house was deathly still. His laptop sat open, looping an unfinished track. And there, amid the scene, Malik B lay motionless. His cause of death wasn't revealed, though many speculate a stroke or drug-related incident took the gifted artist. 8. David Ruffin, a golden voice silenced in the dark night. David Ruffin, the soulful voice of the Temptations, once conquered the world with timeless hits. But after the glory came, years drowned in addiction and bad choices. Philadelphia, June 1, 1991, was another wild night. A lavish party. No one could have guessed it would be a legend's final moment. David Ruffin showed up with his usual smile, laughing and chatting among friends. But amid the lively vibe, he suddenly staggered. He grabbed the table's edge, then crumpled to the floor. A stunned silence fell. People rushed over trying to rouse him, but he didn't respond. By the time paramedics arrived, it was too late. They could only confirm what no one wanted to believe. David Ruffin was gone. The cause was later revealed as a drug overdose. 7. Heavy D, collapsing right at his doorstep. Heavy D, a hip-hop legend, once set stages ablaze with his commanding voice and magnetic presence. His hits shaped a generation. But no one could have imagined that just days after his last show, he'd be gone so suddenly. November 8, 2011, Heavy D returned to his Beverly Hills home. No warning signs, nothing out of the ordinary. But right at his front door, he froze and fell. A chilling silence took over. Bystanders rushed to help, but it was too late. Heavy D never woke up. The cause was a pulmonary embolism complication, a deadly condition where a blood clot blocked his lung artery, snatching his life in an instant. 6. Reggie Warren, a fatal fall after the stage lights. Reggie Warren, the golden voice of the legendary R&B group Troupe, once moved a generation with timeless hits. Though his health had declined after years of dedication, he kept performing to bring joy to fans. Tragically, just hours after an emotional show, he was gone forever. March 14, 2021, Reggie Warren came home after a performance. Tired but fulfilled, he sank into a chair. Minutes later, a fierce pain hit. His breathing turned ragged. His heart raced chaotically. He tried to stand, but his legs gave out. A fleeting moment of struggle, then he collapsed. Gasping, he dialed 911. When help arrived, it was too late. The cause was heart failure, swift and overpowering, leaving him no chance to fight. 5. Fred Curly Neal, collapsing amid memories of glory. Fred Curly Neal, a basketball legend with the Harlem Globetrotters, stunned the world with his dazzling dribbles and top-tier showmanship. He wasn't just an athlete, he was a true artist on the court, but a fateful morning took it all away. March 26, 2020, Houston, Texas. Curly woke up like any other day, stepping into his living room filled with mementos of his storied career. He smiled at an old photo with teammates, but suddenly, his body locked up. A second later, Curly's sturdy frame crashed to the floor like a felled oak. A stroke struck too fast. In mere seconds, the legend's life stopped, giving him no time to call for help. By the time he was found, nothing could be done. 4. Nell Carter. A collapse after years of resilient struggle. Nell Carter, a gifted actress who conquered Broadway and Hollywood, captivated millions with her powerhouse voice and natural humor. But behind the bright stage lights, she battled diabetes and heart disease, enduring silent pain for years. She fought bravely until January 23, 2003. Beverly Hills, a quiet morning. Nell woke up as usual, her home still brimming with traces of a brilliant career. A Tony Award, old scripts, photos with colleagues. But something felt off. Her body grew heavy, her legs suddenly weak. Then, in a shaky instant, Nell hit the floor. A stroke, fueled by years of ailments, swept through like a storm, leaving no chance to resist. When loved ones found her, a shining star had faded in silence. 3. Teddy Pendergrass. Even resilience falls to fate. Teddy Pendergrass, the golden voice of R&B, made the world swoon with his commanding love songs. Paralyzed after a horrific accident, he kept singing, defying fate with unwavering grit. But even a warrior runs out of strength. January 13, 2010, Philadelphia, a frigid winter night. Teddy's room was shrouded in darkness, only the faint sound of his shallow breaths cutting through the quiet. Respiratory failure had hounded him for years, but never like this. A wave of breathlessness hit, relentless. Teddy knew it was different this time. It felt like an invisible hand squeezing tight. His body let go. Then, utter stillness. His final breath faded, closing a life of towering highs and lows. 2. Chadwick Boseman, the sudden departure of a great warrior. Chadwick Boseman, Hollywood's symbol of resilience, turned Black Panther into a legend while secretly battling cancer for 4 years, unbeknownst to all. He filmed, he fought on screen, and in life, he waged a silent war with his body, never complaining. It only came to light after he passed on August 28, 2020. Los Angeles, a fateful evening. His room was wrapped in stillness. Cancer had drained Chadwick bit by bit, but his eyes still shone with the determination he lived by. Family held his hand close. No noise, no cries, just peace in his final moment. They couldn't look away from him and the clock. 9:32 p.m. marked the moment his heart stopped. When the news broke, no one could believe the hero had endured in silence for so long, giving his all to his last roles for the fans. 1. Tiny Lister Jr. A terrifying silence in a locked home. Tiny Lister Jr., a hulking figure with a steely gaze, struck fear into audiences with his menacing on-screen villains. Always passionate about acting and never late, he didn't show up to set as planned that fateful day. No one answered his phone. Texts went unread. No one suspected it signaled an irreversible tragedy. December 10, 2020, a gloomy afternoon heralded a legend's final chapter. Tiny Lister had felt unwell the day before, but he wasn't one to stop or complain. He hid his fatigue and pushed on. This time, though, his body wouldn't allow it. When crew members came to his home and got no answer despite his phone ringing inside, dread set in. They called the police. When the door was forced open, the sight inside stunned everyone. Tiny Lister Jr. lay motionless on the floor, no signs of life. He'd succumbed to COVID-19 complications and heart disease, a chilling reminder of how swiftly the illness could strike. These talented souls left an indelible mark in life, and their sudden deaths remain haunting to this day. They once stood at the pinnacle of fame, radiant, powerful, untouchable. But in one fateful moment, it was all taken away. Which story shocked you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next jaw-dropping tales behind Hollywood's glittering facade.